Happy Sunday night, guys. Captain Dylan Hubbard here from Hubbard's Marina, coming to you for our live stream fishing show. That's right, it's Sunday night, guys, and we're ready to do the live show. Everything should be working nice and smooth for us tonight, so we're looking forward to a great show. We got some cool stuff lined up tonight, and give us a few minutes. We're going to get started here on Facebook, and we'll get rolling. So remember, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too busy, bear with us a second as we introduce the video on Facebook, and we'll get started. If you're not watching this live, you can skip forward to where you see the video start. If you are watching this live, just give me a few minutes and we'll get started. Hopefully everybody's ready for a good night. Happy Sunday night, Facebook. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Captain Dylan Hubbard here, live from Hubbard's Marina, talking to you about nearshore and offshore fishing tips, tricks, and more. Hopefully you guys are ready for a great night tonight. I know I am. We've got a great show lined up for you. We're going to be giving away tons of fishing tips, tricks, and more. We're going to be talking about weather. We're going to be talking about red tide. We're going to be talking about what's going on here at Hubbard's Marina. So stay tuned. Definitely don't want to miss this great show tonight. If you're not watching this live, you can go ahead and skip forward to where you see the video start. If you are watching this live, just give me a few minutes here and we'll get started very shortly. Hopefully you guys have some great questions lined up, and you're ready to share your fishing questions with me, because I'm ready to answer them. And hopefully you guys are enjoying tonight and this beautiful weekend that we've had. The weather is beautiful right now and should remain beautiful until this approaching front demolishes our area. But that front is stalling out a little bit for us. So we're going to be talking more about that here shortly. Again, Captain Dylan Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina. Please go ahead and help me out. If you're watching this live, go ahead and share this video with your friends and family and your fishing buddies in your favorite fishing group or on your timeline. I'd really appreciate the help in sharing the stream. Also, guys, please make sure you like the video. Go ahead and click thumbs up on YouTube. On Facebook, go ahead and click that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. It helps us spread the word a little bit and raise awareness for this cool show we do every Sunday night. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and hopefully you're ready for some good talking fishing. We have some guests virtually tonight. We're going to be showing some videos from some of our captains at Hubbard's Marina. We're going to be doing some interesting stuff tonight that we haven't done in the past, and we should have our choppiness issues fixed up. If you're watching this live, just bear with me a few seconds. We're going to get started here shortly. If you're not watching this live, you can go ahead and skip forward to where you see the video start. Again, please like and share this video for me. Comment where you're watching from. And always, please get ready for a great show. Don't forget about our Bass Pro Shop seminars coming up here. We have a Bass Pro Shop seminar on November 17th, December 8th, and a lot more interesting stuff coming up, which we're going to be talking about here soon. And it looks like we're doing pretty well. No choppiness tonight, so that's good. Happy Sunday night, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Captain Dylan Hubbard here from Hubbard's Marina, talking to you tonight about lots of fishing tips, tricks, and more. I got a lot of cool information tonight for you guys. We're going to be talking about the Flying Hub 2 and the Flying Hub 2 changes that we've made. We're going to be talking about red tide and what's going on with red tide. We're going to be talking about some of the interesting things that are going on around Hubbard's Marina and the cool events we have coming up, and always going to be talking about the great light loads we have coming up. We've got a 39-hour trip coming up here, November 27th, December 4th, both with super light loads on them, so that'll be pretty interesting as well. So lots of cool information here. I'm just finishing up one last thing here, folks, and we'll go ahead and get started. Now, hopefully you guys have some questions lined up and you want to know some fishing tips, tricks, because I'm ready to share some information tonight and hopefully help you put some more fish in the fish box next time you come out fishing with us. Make sure you comment and let us know where you're watching from, and make sure you like the video for us. That always helps me out. Now, I first wanted to start out talking a little bit about the weather and what's coming up. Here at hubbardsmarina.com, you can go to fishing trips, and down towards the bottom is our weather links page. We definitely have some weather coming at us. We've got a very strong front coming this way, but that strong front doesn't seem like it's going to really mess with us too bad. So let's see here what we got going on. That's a nice one. That's a pretty good front. I know the barometer right now is going up, so it'll be interesting to see how that barometer affects this. So day 3, that thing's already past us. Pretty strong front. And then look at this, another one getting ready to go right by it. So another strong front. Looks like it's going to be a pretty decent week. These cold fronts really help us out by breaking up the red tide. Stronger winds, stronger waves really help break things down for us. We want it to be kind of dry, though. That's what we're looking for. A dry front is always better. Let's see here. Location. There we go. Region. North America. Nope. North Atlantic. See, I should always have this stuff already pulled up. Oh, there it is. Gulf of Mexico. Let that switch for us. Yeah, this isn't the right one. Man, this is a strong front, guys. It's no joke for sure. So this front looks like it's going to be hitting us. Let's go back to the Hubbard's Marina page. Again, this is our weather links page under fishing trips. You can find all this cool information. Let's see the predict wind page. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. So this is Monday. Monday looks really nice around us. Only 8 to 10 knots Monday. Now we're coming into Tuesday. Still really nice all day Tuesday. Now we're coming into Wednesday, and that's when that front starts getting in on us. Wednesday morning is when we'll see that big wind. That's some serious 30-knot gusts in the red there. So some pretty heavy winds starting Wednesday morning into Thursday, and then it starts getting nicer for us into the weekend. It's about 15 knots there Friday morning, and as we come into the weekend, it starts really calming down for us, which is nice. Ooh, look at that. As that front moved over, it kind of spun off something there. So really interesting models and weather forecasts here on the Hubbard's Marina Weather Links page. And then always my favorite go-to is Wind Finder, because it goes so far into the future. And look at that. The wind, this front has really stalled. Wow. So on the front, wow, it's looking like it's more almost like the weekend. This thing was looking like it was going to hit Tuesday morning and really make Tuesday and Wednesday kind of windy and rough. Now it's looking like more like Thursday, Friday. So that's not good. Always keep an eye on these weathers because it changes so much this time of year. So now this is the offshore forecast. So today's Sunday. Beautiful day out there today. Nice strong stiff east breeze. And then Monday it kind of shifts out of the southeast. Little breezy. Again, this is in the middle Gulf, so you can ignore these wave forecasts for those half-day fishing trips. Tuesday is actually looking really nice. Wednesday it starts picking up a little bit, and then Thursday it goes a little bad Thursday. Friday it starts getting nice again. Well, this is good news. This looks like it's not going to affect our 39-hour trip. Just might be a little bit of a bumpy ride out on that 39-hour this weekend, but during the actual fishing it's actually going to calm down pretty nicely. So that's good news. Hopefully that front doesn't stall anymore. That would be bad news. But long story short, we got some cold weather coming our way. The forecast is also on here. Let's see what the forecast says. I know it's supposed to get chilly this week. And there it is. The chilly weather moved back too. It was supposed to be in the low of 40s Tuesday night. Now it's gotten significantly higher. So it looks like the cool night is going to be like Tuesday night, Wednesday night. But those temperatures are pretty low, and then we get another little front. So it looks like we got a weak front coming sometime Tuesday, and that thing has really died out. And then we have another front coming in kind of Thursday. So back-to-back fronts keep rolling. That's interesting for sure, and definitely good news as far as the red tide goes, because the red tide really does not like that windy, stirred up water condition. The more it breaks up that knot of red tide and that bloom, the water temperatures get a little cooler. It's a little harder for that red tide to continue growing at an accelerated rate, which is good news, obviously. So hopefully if we're gonna have bad weather, we might as well have it and have it help us a little bit. And so that's good news there. So a nice big old mangrove snapper. These photos that I'm about to show you are from our 39-hour fishing trip that just came in this morning. This nice lady and her husband came out fishing with us. She was kind of struggling a little bit. Captain Brian took her under his wing and got her styling. So at first she was kind of cramped up in the back of the boat. Captain Brian moved her up towards the bow a little bit where there's a lot more room, and he showed her how to do it and made sure she knew how to hold bottom. And as soon as she was starting to hold bottom naturally and really present that bait more naturally and give those fish a chance to bite that bait, bam, she started catching them. And boy, did she learn quickly. Captain Brian was super pumped this morning to see the accelerated rate in which she was able to pick up on those tips he was given and really see her go from struggling to excelling. And it wasn't too much longer until her husband came up next to her and started fishing up there in the bow too. Great example of how there's not one spot on the boat better than any other. As long as you know what you're doing, you're presenting that bait naturally, and you're doing all those right techniques, you can really catch a lot of fish no matter where you're standing on the boat. Me personally, I've never fished the back of the boat. I always fish up towards the bow. It really kind of gives us more room to work, more room to cast, more elbow room. And as long as you start catching fish, mangroves are funny. You can have one guy who knows what he's doing consistently catching fish, and it seems to get him fired up in that little area. If you get 2 or 3 good anglers together, bam, that is a hot spot in the boat. And that is why, in my opinion, a lot of times the back of the boat might look better and might look like they're catching more fish, just because most of the time there's a lot of experienced anglers in one spot, and they tend to capitalize on the bites they get. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter where you stand on the boat. As long as you're doing the right thing and you have a little bit of luck on your side, you can always do pretty well out there. So let's see what else they caught. The big news on this trip was the mangroves. They caught a lot of big mangroves this weekend out there on that 39-hour trip. They were battling some fairly rough conditions, about 3 to 5 foot seas through a portion of the trip, really the second half of the trip. It was a gorgeous ride out, flat calm first half of the night, and then as the sun started to rise, that wind started to rise as well. They did see some pretty big waves around a little after noon time. They saw some 6, 7, maybe even 8 foot waves occasionally, but majority of the time it was about 3 to 5 foot. And then it started calming down a little bit for the ride in, which was nice. We were expecting it to get worse and worse throughout the trip, but it kind of laid down a little bit for them, so that was good. Now this trip didn't have any live bait. There was no pinfish due to that red tide. Red tide was getting better and better and better and better, and it seems like this week it's kind of taken a turn from the worst. Around Tuesday it started getting kind of dark in the pass. By Wednesday it was like brownish red in the pass. Thursday we started seeing the occasional dead fish. Friday was a few dead fish, still really brownish red water. Today it was a little bit better, but overall it's been pretty nasty inside John's Pass water quality wise. But we don't have the breathing and gagging problems. I'm able to stand out there and do our live videos and not freak out about it. So we're not coughing and gagging, but definitely having problems keeping live bait alive, unfortunately. Some guys on this trip brought out their own live bait. So guys went out and caught their own pinfish and brought it in their own live wells, because we were unable to get live bait because of the fact that just the red tide was so bad. If we're able to catch it, then once we try to transport it, they die. Or if we're able to catch it and transport it, once we put it in the tanks at the dock, it dies. And then if we're able to catch it, transport it, keep it alive at the dock, and then get it to the boat, it'll die on the boat on the way offshore. So we have been struggling. We finally just gave up on the live bait. But some guys didn't want to give up. They were real hard-headed, and they brought their own live bait. And I would say almost all of it died, but a very small amount lived, and they did do okay on that live bait. But the interesting thing, the big news from this trip was the dead pinfish that they had. They were actually butterflying those pinfish, and they caught a lot of these big grouper on dead butterflied pinfish. So that was pretty interesting, especially the big gag. The big gag I'm going to show you here shortly was caught on a dead butterflied pinfish. A lot of fat red grouper. Another great bait right now, because we don't have live pinfish, has been bonita strips. This one was caught on a big fat bonita strip. Stripped up mackerel. You can catch mackerel while trolling on the way out. Or chunks of mackerel have been working really well as well. So threadfin herring, strips of squid, or strips of bonita, strips of mackerel, chunks of mackerel, and then the dead pinfish were the kind of killer dead baits this trip. Baby octopus is always a great option too. We sell some baby octopus in the shop, and they work pretty well. This is a nice little hind, very good eating fish. It's in the grouper family. It counts against your grouper bag limit. This is looks to me like a rock hind. Really good eating fish. A lot of people call them strawberry grouper. Very good eating fish. Now this is that big gag grouper I was talking about, caught on a dead pinfish, believe it or not. We're going to hear from Will here in a second. Will's going to give us a rundown of the trip and how they did out there. He's going to talk a little bit more about that, so I don't want to take away from that video. They did catch some kingfish while trolling. They caught some mackerel, some bonita. The mackerel and bonita were thrown in for cut bait later in the trip. The kingfish, we keep in a nice kingfish cooler upstairs, keep them brined a little nice, and keeps that meat good for the smoker. And then good old Jighead Ed here, Obi-Wan Kenobi, if you will, got this big old kingfish reeling in a knocker rig. A lot of times towards the end of a spot, once we've been fishing for a while, we'll create that natural chum slick, and a lot of those big mangroves will come up off the bottom to try to eat in that chum slick. That'll also attract big kingfish, big tuna, and other pelagic species like cobia. So Jighead Ed will often float back a super light knocker rig into that chum slick towards the end of a spot. So this was caught right as the boat was pulling anchor to head home. Last spot of the day, or last spot of the trip, last spot of the, or really the boat was moving, pulling up anchor. And he had finally gotten that knocker rig out there on a chunk of threadfin. And the boat started moving and leaving, so he started retrieving it real slowly, and this big old smoker kingfish smacked it on the retrieve. So that was pretty cool to see. Really nice to see a nice big old kingfish come into the boat there, and it was quite the surprise. So again, make sure you click like on this video. Help me spread the word a little bit here, guys. Also, make sure to share the video for me. I'd really appreciate it. Don't forget to comment and tell me where you're watching from. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about red tide. This is from our friend meteorologist Brian Bennett. He does some really good red tide updates, gives you some really good information, and he uses the FWRI, FWC, and USF maps and kind of adds a little bit more explanation to it. So pretty good explanation here, and this is what we're worried about. This is the reason that we don't have our live bait. Now, it is not so bad in the back bays, so we're able to cruise our dolphin watches. We're able to do our sunset cruises, no problem. We've been going out to Shell Key and Egmont Key daily, having a great time. Great shelling in between these cold fronts. But this dense piece of red tide is what's not enabling us to get live bait offshore. And this is why we are not having live bait right now. But we are able to sometimes get some live bait through it, but most of it will die in the live wells before we get offshore. And because it's extending out here anywhere from 10 to 14 miles. We're not able to put traps offshore because once we bring those traps into the boat, they die once we pull them up. So unfortunately, the live bait is continuing to be a struggle, but this has not stopped us from catching plenty of great eating fish and having a great time while we're out there. So the fishing is really good. The red tide is definitely here. It definitely seems to honestly getting a little bit worse in our area, but it's not affecting our ability to catch fish, find healthy fish. But anywhere from the beach out to about 10 to 12 miles, it's pretty bad right now. But our half days fishing a little bit further, 14, 15, 16 miles from shore, we're doing great out there. Today, Captain Joe was running the half day fishing trip. He brought in about 200 fish for about 30 people this afternoon. This morning, they had about 28, 30 people. He brought in about 180. So the half-day fishing trips are catching plenty of fish. Our 10-hour all-day is doing really well. But first, I wanted to show you Will's explanation of our 39-hour trip. So let me start this up for you. I wanted to show you here. Will's going to give you a rundown from the 39-hour fishing trip, tell you a little bit more about what was biting.
All right, guys, come back with a great catch of mangroves here. A bunch of gags in there as well. They're covered up by the mangroves, but went out there with little to no pinfish and did good on the gags and mangroves without the live bait. Thread fins mainly on the mangroves, but the gags were biting dead pinfish.
Dead pinfish.
Several gags and the jackpot gag on dead pinfish.
Nice.
So you got it. You can bring dead ones out here. The gags are biting dead ones right now. Which I haven't seen that before, but I guess they do.
So what was a good bite on the mangroves with?
Light tackle, thread plug, thread fin, or even a cut mackerel or bonita or something like that.
Cut mackerel, cut bonita, and then thread fin plugs with that double snail rig?
Double snail rig, 40 to 50 pound test.
Nice.
50 in case you get a grouper bite, you can have a little more pressure on it, you know.
Yeah, nice pile of fish. Overall, a good trip with a lot of mangroves, huh?
A lot of mangroves.
See, that was a great explanation there. This time of year when the grouper are around and we have more gags biting and you have a shot for that gag grouper, you definitely want to try to have, you definitely want to have a shot at those gag grouper, and using that heavier tackle, that heavier leader when you're targeting those mangroves gives you a shot for that gag grouper. So often this time of year, I'm going to go a little heavier on my mangrove snapper leader for that reason. Gives you a shot at that gag grouper if he happens to bite, or that red grouper, to be able to catch those fish. So definitely want to make sure that you're paying attention and getting ready to put the hammer down if you get that big grouper biting your mangrove rig. Another great reason why I love those two-speed reels. Those two-speed reels really help, because your mangrove snapper fishing, you've got that high-speed reel, click of a button, now you've got that low gear ratio, super powerful reel. So very cool information there from Will McClure, our first mate on our 39-hour fishing trip. Hopefully you guys can hear these videos well. This is kind of my first attempt at showing you guys some videos that we filmed through the week, kind of give you a fishing report. This next one is Captain Dave Singletary. He's one of our newer captains to Hubbard's Marina, but he's been fishing in the Gulf for a really long time. He's been doing a great job catching a lot of fish. And this is a fishing report that we filmed Friday morning from Thursday's. I think it was a 6-hour hub private charter. So let's see how he did Thursday.
Captain Dave here, talking a little bit about his hub 10-hour all day on Thursday. How you doing, Dave?
Good. How you doing this morning?
Good, man. How was your trip yesterday?
It was good. We were fishing between 70 and 90 feet yesterday. The grouper bite was hot yesterday. We probably caught 60 red grouper yesterday. A couple dozen were within a half inch of keeping. So we're seeing a lot more activity with them, but we got 5 sure enough slobs yesterday.
Nice. 5 keeper red grouper, a bunch of the juveniles, which is great to see. That red grouper action seems to definitely be picking up a little bit, huh?
Absolutely, and you know, you have to entice them. The bite starts off a little slow. You start getting a lot of the lane snapper, the beeliners and everything. The Humboldt squid wings that we use, I like cutting 10-inch strips and I split them and send them down. And that kind of gets them fired up.
So you're saying you cut a strip and then you kind of split the strip?
Yeah, because the Humboldt squid wings are really thick, so you split the tail, so it's like a split tail, almost like you were sending down a butterflied fish, and it turns them on really good.
Get a little bit more flutter in the strip when you strip it, huh?
That is correct.
And then I heard you guys were butterflying some of the big fish you were catching out there, like some of the smaller fish you were catching, and that's what was helping you get a lot of the big red grouper too.
That is correct. I mean, bigger bait, bigger fish. Some of the small fish will still peck at it a little bit, but the big groupers see that, they'll come up.
Nice. So butterfly baits, the stripped, or I guess you would call it cut, squid strips.
Right.
And then what about the snapper? I saw you had a lot of big lane snapper. What were they biting on?
I did, and we were catching them on squid also. You just, I was using a 3-ounce lead yesterday. It's been very calm out. The current hasn't been bad at all. So I dropped down to a 3-aught hook, 3-ounce lead. And then, of course, the lanes, the beeliners, all your grunts, some mangoes, all the smaller meat fish will do.
Very cool. Yeah, you had some big lanes. It seems like the big lanes are coming a little bit more common.
They are. We probably caught a couple hundred of them yesterday pretty quickly. The hogfish, again, the good thing is when you're fishing those 3-aught hooks and that 3-ounce lead, you know, don't hesitate to switch up to shrimp too, because we've been getting some really nice hogs on that as well.
Yeah, the hogfish bite seems to be picking up. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now's the time. The hogs are starting to move in, so what I primarily try and do on my trip, if I can get everybody together, especially when we're on the hub, when we're doing smaller privates, is drop all your shrimp down first. Don't fire up the grouper. Go after your hogs. It takes a lot of shrimp sometimes. You'll get through the grunts and the lanes and the beeliners and everything else, but those hogs will fire up. And once you get done hog fishing, then you can start dropping those bigger baits going after fish.
Yeah. It seems like you almost have to fish through those more aggressive fish to get to the hogs, right?
You do. And normally when you see one hog come up, they'll all start coming up right behind them. So, but yeah, I mean, the bite's been hot. The barometric pressure is exactly where we want it right now. It's nice and calm out. So some of my spots I got to anchor on. You really, you know, when you're anchoring, you got to be right on top of the spot. But a lot of times I tell the anglers too, you know, when those currents, when I am anchored or if I am drifting, when you drift off of those spots, sometimes you won't always see structure on the bottom. There's a lot of Swiss cheese down there is what we call it. There are cracks that are in the bottom of the ocean and those fish sitting that. So you won't always see those fish on the bottom, and those are little gem spots. So we'll drift over that stuff and pick up some nice grouper.
Gotta love the Swiss cheese this time of year.
Yeah, man.
Well, thanks, Captain Dave. You have a good day.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you next time.
Well, there you go, guys. Some good information there from Captain Dave from his Thursday Hub private charter. We're definitely seeing some nice fish out there.
Hi, guys. This is
and definitely catching a few really nice lanes. We're seeing the hogfish bite start to pick up. Gag grouper bite is starting to get a little bit better near shore. Hopefully you enjoy these little videos. I'm going to start trying to do this a little bit more often. Try to get a few of the guys to contribute to these live shows through those videos. I don't know how well you guys could hear that. That was the first time I tried it. So let me know in the comments if you could hear that video well, if it looked good, and if you like it. Did you like it? Should I keep doing those videos? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Besides the fishing that we have been doing, we've been doing a lot of work on the Flying Hub 2. Captain Anthony has been doing a lot of work, cutting a lot of stuff off the Flying Hub 2. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Flying Hub 2. Hopefully you guys are ready for some great gag grouper action. We got some really big gags last fall on the Flying Hub 2, and the Flying Hub 2 is going to hopefully come out of dry dock bigger, badder, faster. It's looking really hot. We're going to do a video here probably tomorrow, if not the next day, where we're going to show you in person on a live video on our Facebook page exactly the changes to the Flying Hub 2. But definitely really cool stuff coming to the Flying Hub 2. So let's hear from Captain Anthony now about what's going on with that boat.
Hi guys, this is Captain Anthony talking a little bit about our Flying Hub 2 progress and what we're doing to the boat. How you doing, Anthony?
Good. Finally able to see some water after about 2 weeks.
How's it going over there?
It's going good. We're really cutting a lot of stuff off the boat, moving a lot of stuff, new engines, new bottom paint. Kind of looking forward to getting back out, and hopefully the boat's going to be even more efficient so we can get out even further and even faster. These new engines, we've heard a lot of good things about them, so hopefully everybody's right.
So what new engines are we putting on the boat?
We're doing 350 Verados. They turn, from my understanding, what I was told is they turn about 1,000 more RPM, so hopefully we don't have to use all that, but still it's always nice to have that much more power.
So more power, we're hoping for a little bit more speed or just about the same speed?
It all depends, because we are getting new bottom paint. It is a special bottom paint. It is I don't really know what it is. It's like a rubber-based bottom paint.
Yeah, it's the same paint they use on cruise ships.
That's what it is. So
it was $5,000 for a 46-foot boat.
Yep. So we're hoping that helps us, get a little bit more speed with the same RPMs that we were using before. That way we get better efficiency and obviously more speed.
And then what exactly did you cut off the boat? We cut a bunch off the boat to reduce the weight, right?
Yeah. So we took the sink out of we took the sink out of the bathroom, made some vent holes down below. We took the front bench off, moved it to the back, took that big bench completely off. We're gonna put a fish box back there for like a backrest and all that. So we're pretty much moving the weight off the bow of the boat to the stern of the boat, which is why we always tell people we always got to sit from the second seat back. So we just eliminated the first bench. That way there's no confusion about it.
Cool, man. So moving some weight to the back, new bottom paint, new motors, and we got superchargers now, huh?
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. The guys should be out, I think either today or tomorrow to fine-tune the engines, and then hopefully we're back in the water probably tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning.
Nice, nice. Just in time for this bad weather, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to get out there and get some gags out.
Yeah, this gag grouper season's coming up. You got a lot of 12-hour extremes ready to go, right?
Oh yeah, we do. We're a little light on some of them, but it's first couple trips. As soon as we put some gags in the box, I know it's going to fill right up.
And I know last October you got that 45-pound gag grouper, or 30. What was it?
It was
42.
40. It was a 41, and then we got a couple 30s. So it's just bring some big gear, and hopefully we can get this red tide going, so I can have some of this live bait too.
Yeah, Dave was talking before. He's been catching a lot of baits, or a lot of big grouper on that butterfly bait that we're catching out there, and some of the big fish that we're catching while we're out there. So live bait is it's annoying, but we're still able to catch plenty of big grouper on big bait.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's just a challenge. Try jigging. Maybe the jigging might work out better. We're supposed to have a full jigging trip on the 17th next week. Hopefully the weather's good for us, and we'll see how that works.
Cool, man. We look forward to seeing a lot of those big gag grouper this fall. Thanks for joining us, Anthony.
Yep, no problem, guys.
All right, that was a good report there from Captain Anthony on the Flying Hub 2. We also have added on the Flying Hub 2 a live well on the bow of the boat. A lot of people have asked, especially during red snapper season when we have a lot of people fishing on the Flying Hub 2. It's kind of hard if you have live bait to get from the bow of the boat to the stern to grab a live bait out of the well. So we've added a little live bait well at the bow of the boat. So once we get offshore, we're able to fill that live bait well up and keep live bait in the bow of the Flying Hub 2. So that'll be really, really nice to be able to have live bait access in the bow. We've moved a lot of weight to the stern, kind of changed the configuration on the boat a little bit. My cousin Sam is a really, really good welder, so we were able to cut up that aluminum vessel and change the dynamic and the layout pretty easily thanks to his skill. So we're excited to get the Flying Hub 2 back in action. Due to weather, our first extreme trip's probably going to be hopefully this coming Sunday, November 18th. We're going to try to get it ready for Wednesday extreme trip coming up, but the weather may or may not affect that trip. We're kind of waiting and seeing on that. But who knows? Definitely got a lot of extreme trips. They're Wednesday and Sunday this time of year. So that gives you a great opportunity to check out that Flying Hub 2 and the new changes to the vessel. Hopefully that new super high-tech paint job that we gave it will help us get even more efficiency and more speed and help us get out to those big gags even faster. But it's that time in the video, guys. I want to start answering your questions. So please comment your question, and we're going to start ripping through these questions for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the fishing report, the red tide report, the weather report, and some of the videos from the guys. Now we're going to talk a little bit about your questions. I saw one question about bringing your own live bait on the 39-hour fishing trips. You cannot bring an external live well on the boat. What you can do is you can bring your live well to the boat. And what we did this past trip is the guys lined up their live wells on the dock, and then right before the boat went out, we took all the live bait out of their personal wells, brought it onto the boat, dumped them in the wells, and got off the dock as quick as possible. And that's how we were able to make some of that bait survive. But we still have to transverse anywhere from 8 to 12 miles of red tide offshore. So sometimes that bait will die anyways. So I encourage people to just bring some big pinfish that you can butterfly. They don't have to be alive, as you saw earlier. We're catching a lot of big fish on that butterfly bait. And then some of those fish that you catch through the trip, those big sand perch, those big porgies, some of those fish, you can cut those fish up and use them for bait. Especially butterflied works very well. So there's tons of opportunities to catch some big fish while offshore, even without the live bait, as you saw from that big pile of fish from our 39-hour fishing trip. So let's see what questions we have here. Somebody, Philip Britis, said, how many fishermen on that 39-hour trip video? This morning's trip that came back in, we had 38 people, and we had about 400 mangrove snapper, about 25 gag grouper, probably close to 100 big yellowtail snapper, some huge vermilion snapper and plenty of them, some big porgies, a couple margates, some kingfish. It was a really, really good trip all around. Let's see what other questions we have here. Everybody seems to have enjoyed those videos, so I appreciate it. Let's see. Kevin Tucker said the red tide was bad as we came inshore for King of the Beach. Once we got to the weigh-in, it was real bad. All the boats stirred up the water. I've never had my eyes and throat burning like it was, but offshore was great. That's a great example there, Kevin Tucker. Offshore, once you get past that 10 to 15 mile mark, you don't even think about red tide out there. It's beautiful. But near shore and sometimes inshore, you can find pockets of blooms that really kind of affect the water and water quality. And if you stir up that water by throwing your motor in reverse real hard, or if it's really high seas, it can definitely aerate that red tide and cause those breathing effects. But generally inside John's Pass, we have not seen that breathing irritation. But from day to day, it changes. This red tide is a dynamic moving target. One day it'll be getting better. The next day it's getting worse. It's really just one of those things you got to kind of wait and see on. I don't imagine that red tide is going to change too significantly through this winter. Unfortunately, it seems like it's kind of here to stay, and I hope I can be proven wrong. We still got December, January, February, March. Hopefully it gets broken down and killed off and is a distant memory by the spring, because if this is able to hang out and persist through December, January, February, come next March, April, May, when the water starts getting hot again, we're going to be in trouble. So I'm hoping for some super dry, stirred up conditions that help break up this red tide bloom, and then cooler temperatures with which will hopefully arrest its growth. Now, the water will not get cold enough to kill red tide. I was under the impression, mistakenly under the impression, that if the water gets cool into the low 70s, high 60s, red tide dies off, and that is incorrect. I was talking to one of the red tide experts at FWRI, and the water temperatures actually can get as low as 50 degrees, and red tide can still survive. So red tide organisms are very strong, very hardy, and unfortunately, they can survive really cool temperatures. So we're going to need some serious weather to unfortunately kill it off. But if it gets broken up, spread out, then it's not a problem. Red tide is in our area all the time. We actually have Pinellas County red tide people coming to sample at Hubbard's Marina off our dock. We've allowed them to come and do sampling right off our dock. So I've had a chance to talk to those scientists even more. And it was really interesting learning more about how they sample, when they sample, and then also learning from that sampler about how they sample 365 days a year all the way through the last 5 to 10 years. They've been doing it every day, all the time. And red tide is always present. For the last 5 to 10 years, when they've been doing this study, red tide has been present in every sample. So red tide is always here. It's never not present. It's unfortunate, though, that sometimes it can bloom. And when it gets bloomed and it has nutrients present and those red tide algae cells are more mature, it can create these fish kills and create that brevetoxin, which causes breathing irritation. So the nutrient presence and the age or maturity of those cells are what causes fish kills and breathing irritation. Red tide is always present, though, and the concentrations can fluctuate throughout the year. So very interesting information for sure. George Paul said, am I allowed to troll with the Squall 60 with 80-pound mono on it on the way out for a 39-hour fishing trip? Yes, you can troll on any spot on our 39-hour fishing trip. You do not have to have a stern spot to troll. If you're up on the side or in the bow of the boat, we simply try to find an area in the stern where someone is not trolling, and we'll get you set up to troll. As long as you have a big enough reel to retrieve a decent-sized kingfish while the boat is moving, you're able to troll. But if you've got a smaller reel that doesn't have the power to retrieve a decent-sized kingfish, a decent-sized kingfish or a large mackerel or a medium bonita while the boat is moving 7 to 9 knots, you cannot troll, because this is a bottom fishing trip. Most people on that 39-hour trip don't give a rip about trolling. They just want to get out there and bottom fish for those snapper and grouper. So we have to make that boat get out there as quickly and efficiently as possible. So we are doing the perfect trolling speed, about 7 to 9 knots. But you have to be able to retrieve your fish when you catch it while the boat is underway. So my favorite trolling reels are those 2-speed reels to give you that low gear ratio to retrieve that fish and give you plenty of power. The TLD 50 that we have in the shop, that 2-speed TLD 50 works great. We have some big saltists that work really well as well. Penn International, anything bigger than like a 50 wide is going to be plenty of reel to troll with on that 39-hour fishing trip. So let's see what other questions we have here. I don't see a lot of questions, guys. So if you have a question and you want it answered, you want to know something about nearshore, offshore fishing, please don't hesitate to comment, and I'll be happy to answer your question here right here. Marcelo Silva said, is there a 10-hour trip on Wednesday? We do 10-hour trips on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. That 10-hour trip is Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. It fishes anywhere from 15 to 25 miles from shore. We're fishing anywhere from about 60 to 100 foot of water. Our half-day trip is our shortest trip closest to shore. The 10-hour is just barely a step up from it. So you still catch a lot of those gray snapper or white grunts or Key West grunts. But you also have a great shot at some hogfish. You have a much better shot at mangrove snapper. You have a decent shot at some red grouper. You have a chance for some big gags occasionally on that 10-hour trip. Flatlining will give you a shot for those kingfish. We've been seeing the occasional tuna. There's cobia swimming by as well. But a majority of what we catch on that 10-hour trip are those gray snapper or white grunts, and you have a shot at some other species as well. Right now, your best thing to target would be those hogfish. Been seeing a lot of hogfish. As that water cools, the hogfish bite is only going to get better. Some live shrimp or those live fiddler crabs are a great option for the hogfish. We've been using our aquatic nutrition sport fishing chum and chumming off that 10-hour all day. And Smokey has been chumming in some nice big kingfish on the flat line too. So there's a lot of opportunities for that 10-hour all-day trip to make it a great day of fishing. But keep in mind, it is a shorter party boat day trip. We're not getting out there to blue water for huge fish, but you do have a great shot at some grouper, snapper, and more. Let's see here. Brandon said, my 5-year-old wants to try fishing. Would you recommend just renting a rod and fishing the docks? I don't see him being all right out on an all-day trip with large rods. Brandon, you could do a 5-hour half day as long as your son's tall enough to see over the rails. A 5-hour half day with the spinning rod and reel, like a 4000 series spinning rod and reel, is a great time for kids of all ages. My cousin Garrett, his 3-year-old and 4-year-old sons love that 5-hour half day fishing trip. They get out there with their spinning rods and they tear it up in their fishing boots. So very young anglers can have a great time on that 5-hour half day fishing trip. And using a spinning rod is a great way for a young angler to be able to feel that bite and make a gray snapper or a grunt feel like a really big fish. So a little 4000 series spinning rod and reel, 20-pound braided line, and like a 30-pound fluorocarbon 6 to 8 foot leader with a line-to-line knot, and about a 3/4 ounce egg sinker and a 4/0 hook and a cube of squid, your son is going to have a great time. But you're always welcome to come fish the docks as long as Hubbard's Marina is open. Our dock is available for you to fish from. The fiddler crabs this time of year is a great option for those sheep's head. We've been seeing some big pompano caught inside John's Pass, the occasional redfish, and there's a lot of black drum around right now too. With the red tide though, sometimes it's a little bit worse than others. Typically like the beginning of that incoming tide has been pretty clean. The end of that outgoing tide has been decent. So it really just depends on what the water's doing. But we have been seeing some nice fish caught around John's Pass. But for me, if it was my recommendation, I would recommend getting on the boat and going on that 5-hour fishing trip. Get out away from that red tide. And with the spinning rod and reel, your son would have a great time. Let's see here. Ricky said, mangrove snapper bite has been great. And that's true. We've been seeing a lot of mangrove snapper recently, near shore and offshore. 70 to 90 foot of water, we've been seeing mangrove snapper near shore. Offshore, about 110 to 140 foot of water is where the mangrove snapper bite has been great. Let's see what other questions we have. George Paul said, is there backup rods and reels available if mine breaks during the trip? Is backup tackle available for purchase on the boat in case I need more? Typically, no. We do not have available tackle on the boat. If you rent a rod and reel, we have your rod, reel, and all your tackle on the boat. If you do not rent a rod and reel, you would need to bring your own rod, reel, and all your tackle. Now, if something breaks, your rod breaks, or something happens catastrophic, like you lose your tackle box off the boat, we're not going to let you sit there and not fish during the trip. So we'll do what we can to keep you fishing. But you got to be able to come prepared with enough tackle for the trip. But if you bring 6, 7, 8 leads and something happens, we're going to make sure that you keep fishing. So George Paul, no, we do not have tackle available for purchase on the boat, and we do not bring backup rods and reels in case people's rods break. But we do have some rental rods in the boat, and I've even seen our crew and captain give their own personal rods to guests to make sure that they have a great time and they keep fishing. But when you come down to the dock, I'd be happy to inspect the tackle you have, and I'd be happy to make sure that you have quality rods and reels. And we also have plenty of rods and reels available for purchase in the shop, or you can always rent a rod and reel just in case. It's up to you, but we do strive to make sure that you have a great experience and you fish throughout the entire trip. We do guarantee an excellent client experience with superior guest service, so we're going to make sure that you keep fishing and have a great time. Terry Feathers said, does red tide affect people eating the fish caught? I hope not, because I just had some for dinner. No, red tide does not affect your ability to eat fish. As long as you catch a healthy fish that was swimming around, you're fine. If you eat one of those fish that are distressed, dying on the surface, or one of the dead fish, not so good. But as long as the fish is healthy, and you caught him and he fought and he ate normally, if he's eating bait and fighting on the way to the surf, it's a healthy fish. And those fillets are 130,000% safe to eat. And it doesn't matter if you catch that in the middle of the reddest tide, most red tide affected area, as long as it's a healthy fish that was able to eat your bait and fight you naturally. It's a healthy fish. It's not going to hurt you. All right. King Jr. said, can I bring J hooks on the 39-hour fishing trip? The law states you, when fishing offshore in federal waters for reef species, bottom reef species, you have to use circle hooks. That is the law. So if you rent a rod and reel from us, we have to provide you with circle hooks. However, we are not a police force. It's not our job to enforce these different regulatory laws when it comes to fisheries regulations. We do educate. We're very strict on venting fish. You must have a venting tool. You must know how to vent fish, but we do provide venting tools on the dock, and we do show you how to vent fish on the way out. And I'd be happy to show you how to vent fish at the dock as well. Or you could check out our Salt Strong article. All you have to do is Google how to vent a fish, Salt Strong, and you'll see that article I created with Salt Strong and how to properly vent a fish. And venting a fish is mandatory. That's the one thing when it comes to fishing regulations that we mandatorily, strictly enforce. We also strictly enforce that there is no sale of recreationally caught fish. So if you catch a fish on our vessel, it can in no way be sold legally. We also strictly enforce the seasons and bag limits and size limits. But as far as circle hooks, J hooks, me personally, on my personal tackle, on my personal rod and reel, I personally use circle hooks when I'm fishing for red grouper, gag grouper, red snapper, amberjack, anything that's going to come up and swallow that bait and run, I'm using circle hooks. But anything that's going to come up and nibble on that bait, like a mangrove snapper, I personally prefer to use J hooks. But that's only because I use a de-hooker that I know can de-hook that fish in a matter of seconds. And I have a venting tool attached to my hip that I know I can vent and release that fish if I catch something that's too small or out of season. So as long as you're handling fish responsibly and you have that proper de-hooking tool and proper de-hooking technique, it's not a problem in my mind. But if you're using 7 J hooks and you're not venting fish and you're ripping them out of their throat with a pair of needle nose pliers, we're going to have a problem. But as long as you're using proper de-hooking techniques and venting techniques and you're getting those fish back in the water quickly, safely, and alive, we have no issues. And if they're legal sized, hopefully they're going in the box. Let's see here. What other questions do you have? Matthew Johnson said, do you think it might be worth it to bring Boston mackerel for grouper? Yes, we're using Spanish mackerel, and they have been working very well for grouper. Also, bonita strips have been working very well for grouper, so Boston mackerel should work well too. Cheers. Let's see what other questions we might have here. A guy from YouTube said, on the 12-hour trip, if you're a medium skilled person, is it worth going? I always recommend, if you're going to try one of our specialty trips, the 12-hour, the 39-hour, the 44-hour, definitely recommend trying a 10-hour all day first. Just getting your feet wet, learn a little bit. It's only $90. It gives you a great opportunity to get more familiar with deep sea fishing before you spend that big investment. $300 for a 12-hour extreme, $369 for a 39-hour, $469 for a 44-hour. Come out and try a 10-hour trip. Get your feet wet a little bit more deep sea fishing. Learn how we do things. Learn our policies. Learn what you can and can't do and what you should bring and what you shouldn't bring. That's going to lower the learning curve on your first extreme trip or your first specialty trip. And that's going to make it more exciting and a better experience for you. So yes, a medium skilled person, even a beginner, can go on one of our longer range trips. but he's not going to have as good of an experience because there's a large learning curve going on one of those long range trips on what to bring, what you need, what you don't need. And you can learn a lot of that on a 10-hour all day, and you can talk to the captain and crew and learn even more. So I always recommend starting small and working your way up to those longer trips. George Paul asked, still targeting amberjack on the 39-hour trip, even though the amberjack season is closed? Typically, no, we don't really target amberjack when they are closed, but we do run across them often, and you do have a chance for catching them, even though we're not targeting them. But when a species is out of season, we try to avoid that species and target the species that are in season. For example, right now, gag grouper is a big thing that we're targeting. So we're hitting ledges and we're looking at those bigger gag grouper areas that are typically not laden with those amberjack. And we wouldn't hit a spring or a wreck looking for amberjack because they're going to be covered up in amberjack and red snapper. And we're going to be constantly catching and releasing fish and probably killing fish that we know aren't legal to catch. So when a fish is closed and not open for harvest, typically we don't target it, especially in that deeper water where there's a bigger chance for that fish to be killed just by its fight and retrieve to the surface. We try to do our best to be conservationists, and we try to do our best to ensure the fish's survival. And when a fish is closed for harvest, it doesn't really behoove us to go stress that fish out and pull them up from deep water only to release it and generally watch it float away and die. So we really try not to target a fish that's closed for harvest. But you do occasionally run into them, especially on those bigger ledges when we're hunting gags and mangrove snapper and stuff. You do occasionally see amberjack. So I'm not saying we won't catch them, but we do not target them specifically. Let's see here. Brian Dunnigan said, did I hear that correctly, that trips for next year will open up December 1st? Yes, Brian, that is my goal. I'm working very hard to get our 2019 fishing schedule open for bookings starting December 1st. That's the race that we're up against right now, and that's what we're shooting for. So we look forward to having our 2019 fishing schedule open, ready for bookings come December 1st. Starting to run out of questions here, guys. I hope you have enjoyed the video tonight. I still got one or two more questions I'm going to answer before we sign off here, guys, but I wanted to quickly wrap up with you. I'm glad you guys enjoyed those new videos that we've added to this live stream show. Remember, this live stream show is every Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. Next week, we're going to even have more of those little live video updates and fishing reports from our captains and crew. So stay tuned next week at 8:30 p.m. for more. This week, I'm going to be going to the Marine Resource Education Program for another 3-week workshop on fisheries management and fisheries science. So I'm looking forward to that, and we'll be talking more about that this coming weekend. Also, don't forget November 17th, December 8th, our next Bass Pro Shop seminars. Also this weekend, very near and dear to my heart, we have the Metropolitan Ministries Food Drive event with Captain Mike Anderson, Captain Bill Miller, right at Metropolitan Ministries Holiday Tent, right there in Tampa. They're going to be collecting canned food and different holiday food items. If you want to come out and join, it's from 9 a.m. to noon. I'll be there with the Hubbard's truck helping Captain Mike and Captain Bill collect food donations, and then we'll be heading to Bass Pro Shops for our 2 o'clock seminar. So come join us at Metropolitan Ministries. It's called Fishing for Hope with Bill Miller and Captain Mike Anderson. We'll be there this Saturday. Then we're going to head to Bass Pro Shops for that 2 p.m. seminar. You can join us in Bass Pro Shops this coming Saturday. For a chance, we're going to give away a 5-hour half day for 2 people. Then we're going to give away a 10-hour all day for 2 people. So come out and join us this Saturday at Bass Pro Shops. Don't forget about our super light 39-hour trips coming up November 27th, December 4th, and then December 1st. That 2019 schedule comes out, so definitely pay attention. Remember, guys, make sure you comment, Tell me how I did on the video tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know how you like those fishing reports from the guys. Make sure you like the video for us. I'd really appreciate it. So let's see here. What are other questions we have here? Happy Angler said, what happens if they ever close mangrove snapper? Well, I don't think they'll ever close mangrove snapper. They are talking about maybe changing the stock status criteria of mangrove snapper and maybe editing the way that stock assessment came out. There was a recent stock assessment on mangrove snapper, and because of the stock status criteria not being determined, they used a kind of a cookie cutter stock status criteria, and the MSST 1-M, that biomass was actually considered overfished, and then the SBR, or the spawning potential ratio, was unfortunately not in favor, and it also said the spawning stock was overfished and experiencing overfishing. So they're changing the stock status criteria, and I'm advocating for a minimum stock size threshold of 50% MSST and an SBR of 30%, and hopefully that will move through. Then mangrove snapper will not be overfished, not experiencing overfishing, and there will be no regulatory changes. So we're working very hard to make sure that mangrove snapper stay just like they are, because it's a healthy fishery. We're catching tons of them. There's plenty of them around. Dr. Crabtree at NOAA Fisheries, Dr. Clay Porch at Southeast Fisheries Science Center. A lot of the fishery biologists I've talked to all agree that mangrove snapper are not a fishery that they're worried about. So hopefully our advocating at these National Marine Fisheries meetings will help not make any changes to mangrove snapper. The coming year, though, we can expect some changes in the red grouper fishery. The red grouper fishery is undergoing a CDAR stock assessment process right now. That's CDAR 61, and unfortunately a lot of people are saying that red grouper have a problem. There's a big problem with red grouper, and that's mostly anglers saying that, commercial anglers and others saying that red grouper, you can't find them, you can't catch them, etc., etc., etc. I feel there's a problem with red grouper. Do I feel it's a terrible end of the world, shut them down problem? No, but I definitely see that there's definitely a decline in the red grouper population. And right now they made an emergency interim rule at the last Gulf Council meeting to match the 2019 ACL with the 2017 landings, which was 4.2 million pounds. So we're going to see almost a 50% decrease in the red grouper ACL, or allowable catch limit, in 2019. But that does not mean regulatory changes, because in 2017 we landed 4.2 million pounds. 2018 it looks like we're going to come in under 4.2 million pounds. So in 2019, if we have 4.2 million pounds as the upper limit, that means we're not going to be able to hit it. That means there's no reason to modify fishing behavior, so thus no regulatory changes. But come mid-year 2019, as that CDAR stock assessment process continues, there's most likely going to be some serious regulatory changes and even another reduction in the red grouper ACL for 2020, and maybe even an interim rule or an emergency closure on red grouper. So we're definitely paying attention. We're definitely going to keep you up to date on what's going on in the red grouper fishery and all the other fishery management issues that we're paying close attention to. We attend every Gulf Council National Marine Fisheries meeting, and we're definitely going to keep you up to date. So I appreciate that question. Let's see here. What other questions do we have? It looks like I've answered pretty much everything here, guys. So let's wrap this puppy up. Remember, if you guys are too busy to go fishing, or you're just too darn busy, hopefully you enjoy those daily live videos we do every morning on the front of the Florida Fisherman, talking about fishing and weather. We're going to keep those up every morning. We do this live show every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. We've got Bass Pro Shops November 17th, December 8th, Saturdays 2 p.m. You can win a 5-hour half day for 2 or a 10-hour all day for 2. come out and join us, and hopefully you get to come enjoy some of this great fishing ahead of this front. Tomorrow we have a super light half day. Tuesday we have a super light half day and a super light 10-hour all day. Tons of light loads, tons of great fishing. Come out and see us. Thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. Have a great night.